Hello, everyone. Welcome to Better Talks. I'm here today with a very special guest.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My name's Andy Farrell. I'm the owner of Ferrell Financial, and my job is to help small business owners kind of untangle that mystery and all the data that's on their P&L and their balance sheets, so I can bring some insights on how their business is working, what's moving, and so they can understand the drivers and understand what levers they can pull to kind of move their business in whatever direction they want to take it, whatever their business goals are. And so I spent over a decade in kind of the corporate finance world. So, I was a corporate FP&A associate and kind of ran up through the CFO, and it was my job to work with senior business leaders, understand kind of what they needed to accomplish in a given year, and then build a plan to help them accomplish those goals or those budgets or revenue targets or whatever it might be. And then on a monthly basis, really a continuous basis, monitor progress towards those goals. And if we're off track, understand why and kind of propose directive or corrective actions. And so I did that for a long time, but my passion has always been in entrepreneurship and small businesses. And so what I do now is I take those skills and offer it as a service to small business owners. And so most small business owners, they've got, a bookkeeping service or maybe some accounting. Those two functions are critical, but they're more backwards looking, right? They kind of tell you what has happened. And so it's my job to take that data and take that information and put together a plan and help those business owners understand where they're going. So I'm more operational and more forward looking and help the business owner actually make decisions and advise. So that's kind of the big difference. So that's kind of the story about me and my business and where I'm at now. I'm out of Richmond, Virginia, so mid-Atlantic. For those who don't know, it's a couple hours south of DC, and I've been here my whole life, so kind of born and raised.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy, for sharing what you do and the type of business you're into. Um, I know one of the typical issues that a startup entrepreneur or a small business face is the accounting, their cash flow. Most times, yes, we have the finances, but there's one thing to be able to manage the finances that you have. So, in terms of the basic bookkeeping, keeping records, ensuring that entrepreneurs and small business owners they have at least the capacity to be able to read those financial statements so that they can make better decisions.
Mhm.
What's your advice or what's your take in guiding a startup entrepreneur and a small business dealing with accounting issues?
Yeah, so I think the one thing that I see most often is just a lack of a good bookkeeping function in their business at all, right?
Mm. Yes.
You know, everything starts there. So it is 100% worth the investment of finding a good bookkeeper, one that is going to like really be detailed. They'll capture not just how much you've sold, but what specific products or services you sold, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the expenses. So make sure, it's going to, if you want to do it yourself, you can have a go at it. There's just a bit of a learning curve. And I think it's worth the few $100 that it probably will cost to get a good bookkeeper because that's where it all starts. That's like the foundation, right? So if you think of a financially well managed company as like kind of a hierarchy, bookkeeping is that foundation, it's the bottom. And so we need to understand all the ins and outs that's going on because any analysis that you want to do, any insights you want to gain from your business starts with really quality data. So, if you're going to do it yourself, you're going to need to invest in some sort of education. um, then the question becomes, is it worth the time to educate yourself? Or should
Yeah.
you just spend the time focusing on your business, focusing on sales, focusing on client
Yeah.
acquisition,
Mm.
and hiring that out? My recommendation would be to hire a professional that knows what they're doing, preferably someone that's worked in your specific industry before and kind of
Okay.
understands the nuances about your business or about your industry. So that way, at the end of the day, when you get those statements, you know that everything is captured correctly and you can kind of dive in if you need to, and the data is there.
I actually like when you said that because as entrepreneurs or small business owners, we do a lot. We do quite a lot.
Yeah.
And like you said, you recommend actually investing in somebody who has a knowledge and experience in doing the basic bookkeeping for your day-to-day operation, somebody who actually understands the industry that you're in. Um, You mentioned that the hierarchy, that's very profound because if the bookkeeping is not correct, then preparing the financial reports, which leads to the financial statements, it will create misleading information.
Yeah,
And as you
absolutely.
said, you have to be detailed in the bookkeeping aspect, ensuring that expenses are recorded, revenues are recorded. What type of expense? What type of revenue? As entrepreneurs, we tend to ignore these small details, but they truly impact the overall at the end.
Yep. Yep, that's absolutely right. I mean, what's that old saying? Garbage in, garbage out. I mean, if that data that you're kind of trying to keep track of isn't accurate, you can try to drive some insights from it, but it's going to lead you in the wrong direction, right? So I think it's just critically important to set up that foundation of sort of financial reporting and financial infrastructure that starts there.
What's your take on technology? Because technology pretty much has been very disruptive in every type of industry, every business function, including accounting. What would you recommend to an entrepreneur, a small business? Obviously, they will hire a bookkeeper, but they also want to
Mm-hmm.
digitalize that segment of their business function. What would you recommend in terms of accounting applications or software that they can use that is user friendly?
Yeah, from that, from if you're just starting out and it's just like a foundational thing, um, you know, it sounds a little bit simple, but QuickBooks Online or something similar. Just make sure it's a cloud-based program so you can have people remotely when you do hire.
Mm,
They can log in and figure, like basically access everything. I've had
yeah.
some clients that have accounts that still use QuickBooks Desktop, and I can't even access the ledger. I can't access any of the data or information. So just a simple program like that. If I'm not mistaken, there's some sort of virtual bookkeeper that I believe is automated that you can pay a little bit extra for on some of those platforms, and maybe that's a good place to start, right? Especially if you're just trying to get this thing, whatever it is, off the ground. And I understand expenses being sort of top of mind. You got to be lean. So honestly, it's just something like that, right? It's just one of those cloud-based accounting programs that can um, that can connect to all of your bank accounts. It can connect to any kind of loan servicing accounts that you've got and kind of track debt levels and debt service payments and things like that. So just a cloud-based program to start out, I think would be the way to go.
Awesome, awesome. Another question that I have for you is I did my research. Most businesses, startup businesses, they can't take off as a result of and the ones that take off end up failing as a result of money. In your honest opinion, why do you think that is?
Why do businesses fail? Is that the question?
Yes, as a result of money, their cash flow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on kind of the business that they're in, but it's really that's it. They run out of cash, and so you know it's really important if you're going to track anything on any of your financial statements is cash balances, and then you need to stand up some sort of system, some kind of financial reporting that will tell you based on whatever forecast you've got. Like I think I'm going to hit X amount in sales for the next 6 months. Well, based on that and kind of the other expenses you got on your balance sheet or any other kind of debt you got to pay, like what does that mean for cash? And so that is like for me, that's like the when I'm working with clients, that's the number one thing that I always look at because once you get to a place where you're in a cash crunch, you have a couple of options. You need to figure out a way to increase cash from operations. That's the first source of money in any business. Um, Second option is taking on debt, which I'm not totally against, right? It depends on what that debt's for. But if you're taking on debt, like you're drawing up a working capital line of credit because you don't have cash to pay for, your operations or payroll or whatever it might be, that's when you're in a really tricky situation. And
Mm,
then the third option to get more cash into the business is, of course, raising money. The owners can inject more capital of their own from their personal balance sheets, or they can find investors, right? And so that's really why they fail. I mean, that's the end result, right? Is they run out of cash. I mean, that could be a couple of different reasons. Maybe it's a startup, a technology startup, and they're selling some kind of software as a service. They got some investors and a cash cushion, but they simply couldn't get the client acquisition. I guess, system dialed in. And then what happens is they burn cash and they can't raise anymore. Some folks, maybe they lose a couple employees. They're already running real light, and then again, because they don't have those employees to service the customers leave, cash goes down. But at the end of the day, there's some operational issue going on, depending on the business, that will lead to them having to burn cash until they either have to come up with more or that's it.
Yeah, thanks for those answers. For somebody who doesn't really know about balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement, how would you go about explaining the differences between a balance sheet, income statement, cash flow?
Sure. So the income statement or the P&L will show you what has happened in a given period of time. So it could be a month, a year, whatever. But it tells you, how much you have sold, how much it has cost you to sell those things, and then it'll give you kind of a running list of expenses. And then of course that's the bottom line is kind of the net profit, but it shows you the activity that has happened over a given period of time. And then the balance sheet is literally the balances in the different accounts, but it's a snapshot, right? So it's not going to track activity. It's like, okay,
Mm.
you know, in January you had X number of sales, X number of expenses, and X number of net profit, and it resulted in your cash on your balance sheet at the end of that month to be X amount, right? And so balance sheet is just a snapshot in time of all your different asset and liability accounts, whereas the income statement measures activity, operational activity, given period of time. And then the cash flow statement kind of, I don't want to get too like deep in the weeds in the accounting
Yeah.
terms and stuff like that, but the cash flow statement basically kind of normalizes those two statements and shows you how cash has changed and what the drivers of cash have been for a given period. So the cash flow statement, if you can get to it, if you can stand something up, that's going to be the most important thing to watch because that obviously drives the cash balances, which is the most important thing. So we want to make sure those reserves are strong.
It's good for the entrepreneurs or the small business owner to really understand these three statements and to
Yeah.
keep track of things, right? Um, what's your take on the importance of managing or keeping track of what comes in a business and then what goes out of a business? In essence, what are the items in the expense line that
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs or small business owners should focus on?
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you're not a financial professional and you're not that kind of, you haven't cut your teeth on, in a professional job or you haven't, taken the time to do, like educate yourself, you can just kind of focus on a few big expense categories and
Mm,
start there. So number one is obviously revenue. That's easy. You want to watch cost of sales. So how much does it? What do you buy the thing for, and what do you sell it for, right? And those are your gross margins. And then on the expense side, after cost of sales is you want to track your payroll expenses as a percentage of your revenue, marketing expenses as a percentage of your revenue,
mm.
and then just the remainder expenses. So overhead, rent, equipment, um, office supplies, whatever it might be. But you really want to watch the big ones are marketing as a percentage of your revenue and payroll as a percentage of your revenue. And so those are like if you can track that and make sure those are staying efficient, then you'll be in an okay spot.
Well, I'm actually a little bit surprised to see that marketing, according to you, it's like a top expense. Just out of curiosity, in terms of marketing, what kind of expenses relates to that?
Yeah,
Especially
it
now
could
that
be
we use
anything.
social media.
Yeah, yeah. It could be paid ads, right? Maybe you're running paid ads on Facebook or something.
Okay.
For my business, I have a lot of association dues. So I'm a part of a bunch of different local networking groups. So that could
Okay.
be into marketing. Maybe you have some sort of I don't know, like uh, you've hired someone to do some sort of organic marketing for you online and kind of manage that. So it could be anything that is designed to build familiarity or attract customers. And you also want to track that closely, right? You want to make sure, if you can, the ideal way to the ideal kind of marketing spend is one that is very trackable. Paid ads on digital paid ads is a great example, right? Like if you spend $1,000, you know exactly how many people saw it. You know exactly how many people took that call to action. You know how many people you got an appointment with. That's the business model, and how much revenue you generated from that campaign. So if you can do it, making sure that you have a marketing channel that you can kind of closely track the results and the return. That's kind of my recommendation.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Now let's come to the accounting cycle because most entrepreneurs like us and small businesses don't understand that there's a process when it comes to the accounting cycle. If you don't mind sharing the process with us.
Yeah, so you mean just like the monthly process reporting and stuff like that?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you have a full stack financial management team, which would include a bookkeeper, an accountant, and then a CFO, which is where I focus. So
Mm,
CFO
okay.
services. Um, you know, we just closed out right July, and so it would probably take 1 to 5 days, depending on how busy they are, to make sure everything's categorized correctly and kind of close the books. And then once that process is done, that's when someone like me and my function would take over, take all
Mm,
that data, help the business owners understand what the rest of the year might look like, how that's changed based on kind of where you want to go and what your targets are. And then, of
yeah.
course, if we have an issue with revenue, okay, let's double click on that. Are we, is it a client count issue? Are we not bringing enough people, or is our average transaction value kind of lower than we expected, or whatever that might be? So, and that process takes, like I said, after the bookkeepers close, I typically meet with my clients in the first 10 days of the month to kind of go over how they did relative to where they wanted to be for that given month, and then update their kind of rest of year outlook so we can kind of review that and say, all right, you're on track, or let's focus on this area and let's come up with an action plan together that will address this.
So when it comes to making major decisions, for sure, the financial aspect of the business, it's a key factor. Um, like you mentioned, looking at the previous years, because I know most accountants or most CFOs that make decisions and analyzing the previous year to the current
Yeah.
year to see
Mm-hmm.
how best the company have done. So when it comes to making major decisions in the business, be it expanding, sorry, having a new product line, do you think business owners should definitely consider a financial strength?
Oh, absolutely. I have a great example of this. So, client I'm working with now, they're in kind of this growth phase. Their main business objective is and should continue to be getting more people in the door into they own a wellness facility,
Okay.
gym memberships, personal training, massage, PT, like all that kind of stuff. Um, but like I said, their focus based on where their financials are, hey, like we just need to figure out how to fill the facility first.
Yeah.
But they came to me recently with interesting opportunity to kind of enhance the experience and add a different offering, to their members. It was sauna, cold plunge, like that kind of thing, and they were going to get a good rate on it. I said, okay. It made me a little nervous because I was looking at the cash balances and kind of the
Mm,
rest of your forecast, and said, okay, how much is it going to cost? When are you going to implement it? What's the pricing going to be? And then how many people, and this is part of what I did, but how many people do you need to sign up for this to pay for itself, and how long is that going to take? So I got all that information from them, ran their numbers, and came back and said, hey guys, like if you achieve your targets, your objectives, your reach goals for this year, and you invest in this year, then you're going to have like 2 weeks worth of cash left in the bank by the end of the year. So
mm,
it's a really good example of how understanding your numbers and
yeah.
understanding your rest of your plan, um, can impact your P&L. And so it's just one of those things where it sounds exciting. It probably would be a better experience for your customers, but financially, we're not in a place to be able to do this. So let's focus on client acquisition. Let's not get distracted by the shiny object, and let's focus on what we need to do. But to your point, it's a good example of how you need to know your numbers to be able to make expansion decisions, for example.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I myself have made that decision where I want to expand, but I didn't focus too much on my numbers. And what do you think about sales? Because I know as a new startup, like if I can give myself as an example, where my media company, when I had my seed funding, I was just spending money just trying to get equipment, just trying to get a studio. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that studio, just to rent a studio costs quite a lot of money, right? And at that time, I just started up. I didn't have many clients coming in for videography, photography. It was too much. So I wasn't really focusing on my sales. So my question to you is, how important is sales?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everything, right? I mean, especially at the beginning, you should be focused, right, on IPAs, right, income producing activities,
Mm,
and that's like the primary thing.
okay.
A lot of business owners and new entrepreneurs, if they're hyper focused on the product or the service, which I understand, like you want it to be as good as you possibly as it can be, but if they're not
Yes.
getting sales, some of them make the mistake of thinking there's something wrong with the product or the service when really they just need to have more conversations with more potential buyers. And so I think
Mm,
for any business, figuring like cracking that client acquisition code is sort of the first thing. I mean, you need a viable product and a viable service. But even if you're new, you still don't even know exactly if this is what everyone wants, right? And so you really
yeah.
need to get out there in front of people and have those conversations with people that would be interested. That should be the primary focus. And there's different ways to do it in different industries. For me, obviously talking to folks like you and just building my network. I do a lot of associations and kind of in-person networking, and that's like like really it stays my primary focus. And then you can kind of, as you have more money coming in, that's when you can invest in getting your product better and iterating on it or hiring staff or whatever it might be. But without that client acquisition system in place, you don't really have business.
Yeah. Perfect. That's a amazing answer. Customers is key.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
everything.
Absolutely. What would be your three top transferable skills?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is to set a goal. Like make sure you have an aiming point, right?
Mm,
Like make sure you know where you're trying to go. And this is just an example from business ownership, but this is transferable, I think. But just onboarded a guy this week, and part of the reason he hired me was because he's like, I don't have any financial goals. I don't really know what I'm capable of or where I'm going or how to get there. And so I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing, and I've learned this just running my own business, is like, you set down a path and you have an idea of how you're going to get there, but I guarantee you it's not going to work out that way. And that's okay. You have to have an idea of how you're going to get there. And as you're going down that path, be open-minded to other opportunities that come your way, different proposals that people might have in working with you that you may not have thought of. And so just keeping an open mind of how this thing might be able to work or whatever goal you're kind of pursuing. And then I think the third thing for me, and this was something that I learned as well, and I'm still learning, is that I wasn't, for example, a natural networker or a presenter or I didn't have that like sort of natural extroversion, you might say, and so I had to face that. And so
yes.
don't be scared. Don't be like if you have a little bit of butterflies about going to this networking event, it's okay. I
Yeah.
promise. I promise everyone. They're there to meet other people. There's other people that are probably nervous there too. But you have to kind
Yes.
of face. You kind of have to face that and
Mm,
and just go for it. And I promise it's not as bad as you think, whatever it is.
yeah.
So I think that's the thing. It's be open minded. Make sure you have a plan, and you know don't let fear kind of just hold you back from what you need to do.
Wow, wow, powerful. So the first one is set a goal, have a plan, and the second one is be flexible.
Yeah,
Sometimes when you plan, things might not work out the way you want it. Be
yeah.
open-minded, be
Be
flexible.
flexible.
And then the last one is network. Just get out of your comfort zone. Don't be
Yeah,
afraid. The world is not
yeah.
gonna eat you alive.
Nope.
Wow, that's definitely transferable, especially for an entrepreneur starting up your
Yeah.
business. One of the major things that sometimes determines or prevents them is fear. That
Yeah,
happened to me
absolutely.
too.
It took me a long time to take that leap and say I'm doing
Wow,
this. So
wow.
it is what it is. It's normal, and it's
So,
okay.
so what pushed you to decide, you know what? that's back my fear because sometimes we think that courage is the absence of fear. No, in the midst of fear, you will still act.
Exactly.
That you are a courageous person in the midst of fear, but you're still
Yes.
acting on your goal.
Hmm.
So for you, what made you that moment in your life to say, you know what? This is my profession. I, I have an idea. I want to start this business. I'm pretty sure you're good at what you're doing, which obviously you
Hmm.
are. The confidence is there. You have the experience, but maybe just what was keeping you back? Is it because meeting people, or is it because of fear of failure? Because you have it all together. You have the experience, you work in the corporate
Hmm.
world, the confidence is there, you're an expert in what you're doing. People need accounting services. I'm just surprised.
Yeah, for me, being owning a business, and kind of creating something of my
Yeah,
own was always something that I wanted. Even, I mean, I remember being like 15 years old, being like, I want to own a business, which is
yeah,
unusual, I think. Well, I don't know about, I mean, back when I was 15, it was unusual. I don't know about now, but so I knew I always wanted to do it, and I was gaining experience on this in kind of this financial skill set, which was really valuable, and I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I
yeah,
spent that time doing it. Um, but it just got to a point where this corporate path, you kind of get to a certain point where it's like, okay, like the next level, I got to really dig in and kind of put in the hours on the corporate world to get to that like VP of finance or whatever it might be.
mm,
And I just knew, I was like, man, I don't have the heart for that. I don't have the passion for that. And so I'm like,
wow,
okay, what options do I have? Like, I know I want to own a business. How can I do that? And so I was kind of toying with the idea of buying a business.
mm,
And I was a little nervous about buying a business in an industry I wasn't familiar with.
yeah,
It takes a lot of it takes a lot of leverage,
yeah,
debt to buy a business. And as a first time owner, I was like, I don't know if I want to risk my entire net worth to buy a business
yeah. That makes
as a
sense.
first time owner. So what I did was I said, okay, let's take an audit of my skills, and obviously the finance skill set was there. And I said, okay, is this sellable, right? Can I build a business around this?
Mm,
So I did a little more research about small businesses, which I was already interested in anyway. Um, and I kind of learned quickly that most small business owners don't know what an FP&A, financial planning and analysis associate is, or what they do. Most of them have a bookkeeper or an accountant, but the difference is, those folks advise or don't advise. They just tell you, like I said, they tell you what happened, not
yeah,
help you
yeah,
plan for achieving your goals. And then, of course,
yes,
being a strategic partner with you on the financial side,
yeah,
to help you come up with a feasible plan to achieve your goals. And so I found that the kind of middle market and lower middle markets, small business, um, you know, uh, sector, I guess, if you will, is highly underserved with people that
mm,
have my skills. And so I
yeah,
said, I think this is a really good opportunity. I think they could really use me. And frankly, it's way more fun and fulfilling to help a small business owner like have that aha moment, so where
yeah,
they have those insights and they understand what's going on. And I'd rather help a small business owner sell their business, or make sure that they have the money to hire a general manager so they can take a step back. Like, I'd much rather do that than
mm,
just help like a corporate executive reach their budget
wow,
target for the
wow.
year. And so that was kind of like my journey from corporate finance to a small business kind of financial CFO or financial consultant.
Wow, wow. It's like you're bringing yourself down just to help the small players, you know? That's thank you so
Yeah,
much for that.
it's fun. There's heart in it. There's grit. There's passion,
Mm,
and like
yeah.
that. That's really what I like about working with people that are kind of creating their own thing.
Wow. And just in the growth with making better decision with your assistants, seeing that small business and getting from point A to point B, B to C,
Mm-hmm.
just playing that big role. As you said,
Mm-hmm.
startup entrepreneurs or a small business, yes, they have a bookkeeper, but they don't have that aspect that can help them set their
Right.
financial goals. And that's
Right.
how you came about, your company came about, to help small business owners, entrepreneurs making sound, wise concrete financial decisions.
That's exactly right. So whether they're expanding,
Mm,
into a new business line, they need to make some investments, or it could
wow.
be as simple as I want to bring home more money and I don't know how to do that.
Wow.
I need a, my kids are going to college. Like, how can I keep more? So, it's those, any of those types of situations is where I can come in and really add value for them.
And this really entrepreneurs, we don't know it all. This is what I tell.
Right.
That's why I do podcasts. I don't know it all. I ask
Mm-hmm.
questions because I want to learn. Because that is not in my field. You understand? And there's no
Right.
crime asking for help. There's no crime taking courses, or there's no crime networking because it
Yeah.
helps you run your business faster.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I see that a lot too is, there's small business owners that do it all at the beginning, which is totally understandable. I get it. You're trying to get this thing off the ground. But, you can't, you yourself can't be kind of the linchpin on this growth or like sort of the
Mm,
barrier, right? Like at some point, your business is going to get too complex for you to kind of
yeah,
be the
yeah,
best person to do the job, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
that's when you really need to lean on experts because yes, they cost money and some of them are expensive,
yeah.
but that function will be like completely taken care of. It'll open up your capacity to do whatever you are uniquely
Yes,
qualified to do in your business. As a CEO, you're setting the vision, you're doing the business development, like you're kind of like setting the tone, and you can't do that if you're trying to figure out how to categorize transactions in QuickBooks
yeah.
or whatever it might be.
Wow,
So I agree.
that's
I agree. I really think that it's at some point you're really going to need to leverage those experts and bring them in
absolutely,
to build a machine instead of just a job, basically.
absolutely, absolutely. So the last question is, kindly share with the audience about your service. Someone is interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just a little bit about my service, just to kind of give a high level overview. When we start an engagement, I do a 2 year look back. So I look at the last 24 months and see kind of what's been moving and changing in your business. So I have a good sense for it. And then from there, I sit down with the business owner, and the first thing that I want to do is understand like why are they in business? Like, what are they really trying to get out of this? Are they trying to sell it? Do they want to have an exit? Are they just right now they're just focused on growing? Do they want to take a step back and be like a true sort of silent owner, which would mean, hey, let's like manage this cash appropriately so you can make the right hires to do it. Whatever that is, that's the first thing I do, and then from there we take a look at where we think they're going to end up for the next 12 months, and then we start setting very specific goals for all of the different financial drivers in their business. So how many customers do you need? Like how much marketing do you need to spend? Like, how much owners draw? So how much can you take out of the business and still be able to hit your other financial goals? All those types of things, and put together a plan. And then each month I go ahead and I update that, and I kind of make sure that we're still on track. And then if not, that's when the business owner and I will work together to come up with a strategic plan, a 30-day plan to start addressing whatever issues that we're seeing in their financials and in their business. So that's how I help. And for your audience, I'm working on it now, but they can reach out to me. My email is Andrew at ferrellfinancial.co. It's FARRELL. And it's almost done. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm working on basically a financial tracker for small business owners that's very simplified. So,
Nice.
it won't be the level of detail that, if you had like one-on-one work with me, but it's a way to be able to track kind of those big buckets that we were talking about earlier. And so it's a
Yeah,
very simple way to do that. So if anyone's interested in your audience, please reach out, and I can send them that, and kind of walk them through how to do that so they can at least be set up to track kind of the big